Hello, this is Wine Blast. I'm me, he's him. Welcome to what has to be one of our tastiest shows of the year, where we reveal our wine of the year.
Yay. Otherwise known as WOTY.
WOTY? Oh, WOTY.
If sports personalities are spotty, then yeah, this is WOTY. We've decided that before, haven't we? This is the thing, WOTY.
Oh, I love it.
Welcome from me. We do, I agree, have a very tasty programme lined up for you. Hopefully it will give you some ideas for delicious wines to buy, and you know, we're really focusing on value this year for obvious reasons. And in this context, we have some outstanding wines lined up, don't we?
We do indeed.
Some
Very
of which
exciting.
may make you think of what have been your favourite wine and drink experiences this year, which is always a fun thing to do.
Yeah, and if you've got some recommendations, great recommendations to share, or, I don't know, perhaps some funny stories about wine, whatever, please do get in touch. And we'd love to hear from you. You can send us a voice message via SpeakPipe, which is a bit like an online answer phone on our website. We're going to put a link on the show notes, or send us an email to contact@susieandpeter.com, or find us on Instagram, or at the moment Twitter. We're all over that, aren't we?
I like the way you say at the moment. It could just be Instagram, quite simply.
It could well be, which would make my life much simpler.
Very hard to predict, but exactly. I don't think you'll be mourning it massively.
Not really.
Talking of getting in touch, we're going to be featuring some of your feedback and questions in this show, because they touch on some fascinating topics and also provide some funny moments, which we love. We'll be recapping also very briefly on our year in podcasts. Not to blow our own trumpets, I hasten to add, or indulge in pointless end-of-year navel gazing.
We wouldn't dream of it.
Far too much of that anyway. It's more to take stock of all the sort of water that's passed under the Wine Blast Bridge.
Water? I think it's wine, isn't it? We don't have much water in this house.
All the wine, oh my God.
No room for it.
Don't dare think of how much wine has passed under this particular bridge. And maybe all of this will give you ideas of things that you've missed or might want to recap on. Probably actually also to remind us of what we need to actually do next year.
Yeah. And actually, on that note, we'd love your suggestions as to what you think we should be covering.
Yeah.
Again, please do get in touch. We may even do a survey at some point, mightn't we?
Survey.
And there's a threat.
Oh, that's a big threat, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also, can I just say, I love what you're doing here. You're outsourcing the problem, aren't you? You're threatening people with a survey. You do the hard work for us.
You do the hard work. Tell us what you want to hear. Now, we were aware, for instance, that David D, who was a big fan of Terroir restaurant in Covent Garden, weren't we all?
That's what we, yeah.
But he's asked us to do an episode on orange wine, which he clarifies is, and I quote, not just hipster wine. But he'd like to hear about producers like Radicon and Gravner.
Yeah, I think he'd be quite impressed with John Werdeman, who he obviously
would,
featured.
yeah.
And I'd definitely happily do a programme on Radicon and Gravner, I'll tell you what, and beyond. Great idea. Thanks, David. Please do keep the ideas and inspiration coming. We've already done episodes this year on natural wine, haven't we? After a question from Nick M, and one on wine boxes. That was quite fun. After a question from Andreas T. But we're also aware there's a big thirst for episodes on sort of classic areas and topics. Looking at the sort of stats behind the scenes, you know, some of our most popular episodes are on things like that, things like Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne. So, is there something you would love us to cover? Or revisit maybe from another perspective? Let us know. Yeah.
And like we say, please don't feel you have to limit yourselves to the classics. Some of our most successful episodes have also been sort of bigger picture topics like how to buy wine, or investing in wine, or build a wine collection at home. So feel free to suggest something along those lines too. Whatever floats your boat.
Natural wine episode has actually generated quite a lot of interest too. So we can do more new wave stuff too.
Can we? Can we really?
We really can.
We're not old
anyway, we're sort of almost doing our recap of our year in podcasting already, aren't we?
We sort of.
Should we just finish it off? Yeah.
Shall we? Yeah. So this year has been a big one for us. We've gone past 1/3 downloads. Which has blown our minds, given this slightly homespun pod started out life as a totally kind of unassuming pandemic project with zero marketing budget.
Yes.
So this is all down to you, lovely people, spreading the word and supporting this show, for which, as we always say, we are hugely grateful.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Please do keep recommending the show far and wide. The bigger we get, the more time I guess we can dedicate to the show, which is win-win.
Right. back to the super fast review of our podcasting year.
Yeah.
Do you know how we kicked off 2022? Which amazing wines we featured?
I was about to say with the football, but wines, no. No, that's far too long ago to remember. Tell me, it's going to be somewhere between Grand Cru Burgundy and cheap Pinot Grigio.
And the answer is none. Or nearly none. Because we actually kicked off 2022, maybe not surprisingly, given it was January, etc., by celebrating no and low alcohol drinks and wine.
Of course.
Yeah. Do you remember? Sharing our anti-recipe, among other things.
It's funny because when we start a season, it's not at the beginning of the year. So this sort of comes in the middle of the season. I sort of tend to think back to the start of the season rather than the start of the year. So it was the dry drinking one. Dry
drinking, absolutely. And I think after that, we segued sort of seamlessly into the world of coffee, humiliating ourselves in the process with a blind tasting.
I do remember that.
The less we speak about that, the better.
Yes.
And only after that did we get onto the Grand Cru stuff. When you put me on the spot, actually. You made me say everything anyone could possibly need to know about Burgundy 2020. At the time, that's what was being tasted. The 2020 vintage, everything in just 5 minutes.
Well, you did well under pressure, as far as I remember. You know, if I remember rightly, you were even drinking as you did so. Or maybe it was the drinking that made you cope well under pressure. I don't know. Is that the way you're made?
I needed it.
We did also cover Bordeaux this year quite a bit, didn't we? Talking sort of classics. We looked at the Côte de Bordeaux, and we gave away cases of the stuff at the time. I also reported back on an epic tasting of top Bordeaux estates from the 1982 vintage.
Need to remind
hard
us.
not to smile while I say that. And then, of course, I got to taste Cheval Blanc 1949. Let me finish on an episode when I went behind the scenes at the Fort Knox of wine. Shut up now.
Yeah, good thing I'm not the jealous type, isn't it? And on the subject of classics, back to the classics, we also covered the new champagne with Cristal winemaker Jean-Baptiste Le Caillon. And then in a subsequent programme, we geeked out, didn't we, on dosage in sparkling wine and how people are tinkering around with it with surprising results.
Yeah, we did. Talking of surprising, we've also touched on Georgia, Ukraine, just trying to remember these, Armenia.
We did, yeah.
Wines from the Arab world, including Lebanon and Algeria, which is a really interesting one. And then to sort of slightly switch focus a little bit, you know, in our comedic fake booze episode, we got into Pet Nad wine and hot cross bun gin.
We did.
I am not going to go any further.
Quite sure how we went there, but there we go.
Any of that. You have to hear it that episode to believe it all. Yeah. Also, you know, sort of on the frontiers of wine, more recently we explored how climate change means England looks set to become a serious red wine producer.
Potentially it does. And amid all of that, we've been feeding our bellies as well as our brains with our food and wine matching series. Firstly, exploring the science of taste with Professor Charles Spence, then going on to outline why we believe taking some time to get food and wine matching right is definitely worth it, despite some of the naysayers claim. And we put some flesh around the bones of this argument by finding wines to go with everyday dishes like chicken curry, veggie pizza, otherwise known as a tart, roast lamb, spaghetti bolognese and fish pie.
All of which has been great fun and hugely educational for us as much as I hope you guys. Now we are going to come on to our wines and wine of the year very shortly. We haven't forgotten. Oh, yeah. So actually, incidentally, now I think about it, that's not actually unknown for us. Something we're going to be coming on to in a second.
What are you going to admit?
But one thing we've also enjoyed, and which we've worked in along the way, has been your input. You know, your comments, your ratings, your reviews, and indeed your questions. We wanted to feature a couple of things in this sense, didn't we?
We did. So to start with, there have been a fair few messages we haven't been able to feature, but we thought if we made a quick edit of just a small selection, we could feature them now. So here we go.
Hi, Susie and Peter. It's Shay Bell from Dublin, Ireland. Love the podcast. Still only on season 1. I will get through it all.
Susie, Peter, legends. This is Bevis Sydney entering your fabulous Côte de Bordeaux competition. Only last week I shared the magic of Wine Blast with my friend Don. I sent him a link to the excellent Coffee Dorks and Wine Nerds episode. I can only apologise for choosing to share an episode that perhaps did not paint you in the most positive light.
Hi Susie and Pete. Having retreated to parents after breaking my foot, Your vibrant discussions and interviews with cutting-edge producers have kept me amused, interested, and, most importantly, pedalling on my one-legged peloton recovery rides. The champagne-Sauternes cocktail, lifted by tart blood orange, as recommended by Laure on Bordeaux's White Bank, is a much better medicine than paracetamol.
Hey, Susie and Peter, thanks so much for the podcast. I'm a huge fan. It really brightens up my drive to school in the morning and helps me think about what I'm going to drink that weekend.
Hi, Susie and Peter. It's Paul from Wimbledon. Really enjoyed the last podcast. Thanks very much. It reminded me of a time a year or so ago when there was actually a really bad fire at the wine storage facility that I use. You know, a bit of a first world problem, but there was a time when I thought I'd lost all of it. It was pretty sad because I spent a long time building it up, and there's a lot of special bottles in there, lots of memories around how I was given them, bought them. Anyway, in the end, when they'd done the assessment, my section where my wine was unaffected, so it didn't impact me. But really important lesson for me in the importance of insurance. It's also a lesson for me in the importance of drinking the wine, I think, because there's some bottles in there that frankly were ready to drink, but just holding off, waiting for the right time. But the right time is now, isn't it? Always when wine's ready. So after all that, I dug a few out. I had a Quintarelli 2004 Amarone. It's fabulous with some friends. Yeah, better to drink it and enjoy it than leave it somewhere tucked away underground. Anyway, thanks again. Keep up the great work.
So, I hope you've managed to catch up now, Shay.
Yes.
Bevis,
Yeah.
Bevis, we forgive you. Phoebe, hope your foot's recovered. Cheers to you, Nick. And thanks to Paul for that valuable reminder that wine is for drinking and enjoying.
Carpe diem. Speaking of which, I did just want to give a quick shout out to listener Becky, who runs a business called Legs Body Finish, which does baby-friendly wine tastings.
Tell me about Becky.
Stick with
There
me.
we go.
Got in touch on Instagram. She says she
Did
does
she
baby-friendly
know?
wine tastings in London called Champers and Pampers. Apparently, it makes parents very happy.
I bet it does.
Becky
Dad's
listens
too
to Wine
by the
Blast
sound of things.
on her way to the tastings and recommends it to fellow parents as a thing to do on walks with the buggy to get the baby off to sleep.
So Wine Blast sends babies to sleep.
No, I think it's more the walk that sends the baby to sleep. Wine Blast keeps the parents entertained. I think that's the idea. But, you know, maybe we could use that as a marketing slogan. You know, it could work. What do you think?
Get back in touch with Becky about that.
I will get
can't
back
you?
in touch with Becky. Becky, I'll be back in touch. It's been sanctioned by Susie. Here we go.
I'm sorry, Becky. Talking of marketing, did you know that we're also developing a sideline of successful agony aunts?
That's news to me. What we could do with the extra income stream. Keep going.
No, well, I don't know if you remember, but Jonathan from New York got in touch because his wine fridge was malfunctioning and he wanted to check if he was putting his wine, as he said, wine treasures at risk. Now, we doled out some very earnest advice, as we always do, and recently he got back in touch to say the following.
Hi, Susie and Peter. This is Jonathan again from New York. I wanted to thank you for your response to my question, and I wanted to let you know that the retailer gave me a full refund for that faulty wine fridge, and I was able to use the money to get a new wine fridge from a different manufacturer that works absolutely perfectly, and now all of my delicious treasures from Champagne and Bordeaux and Tuscany are aging gracefully. Hopefully, I age as gracefully as they do.
Brilliant. We love it when things work out. The only thing I'd add, Jonathan, is that aging gracefully is fine for wine, but overrated for people. Much better to enjoy those wine treasures and then behave disgracefully. That would be my two penneth as a very amateur agony aunt.
Which is probably why we don't have much of a career future on that front. But thank you,
not.
Jonathan. We're glad it's worked out for you. Moving on, I just mentioned now, didn't I, about forgetfulness.
You did.
Right.
Did you?
I did. Nice. I usually just blame the wine for this on a daily basis.
You do.
Hazard of the profession. Everyone buys that. But prepping for this episode has thrown up something really quite funny and worrying, which I wanted to share with you now. So you remember our episode on tasting 1982 Bordeaux?
I do.
Yes.
Which I think we may have already mentioned.
We may have
not?
touched on it.
We may.
It may be a painful memory, but we're going back there. But in that episode, what I'd forgotten is we mentioned a question that had been sent in by Kirsten in California, which touched on a sort of similar theme about silly money wine. Anyway, here's Kirsten's question in full.
Hi, Peter and Susie. My name's Kirsten. I live in far northern California, and I'm a wine buyer for a food co-op, and I love listening to your podcast. And I've been listening to Burgundy Part 2, and everybody complaining about how much they love Burgundy, but they hate the cost. And I literally just wrote a shelf talker yesterday about Domaine Tempier Bandol Rosé and the fact that it's $56 a bottle on the shelf, and how I would long to buy a case and drink it all the time, even though I have a grocery store salary. But my question is, what wine are people willing to pay that much money for, regardless of how silly, frivolous, upset it makes them, because they love that wine so much? I'm curious what wine you all would pay, what you think is a lot of money for compared to your salary. As always, thank you, and please keep the good stuff coming. Cheers.
Right, so in that episode, which is, I think, Series 3, Episode 21, we said, in all earnestness, we would follow up on this excellent question. And we did actually put this question out on social media and got some great answers and had a full episode ready to go. And then somehow we forgot all about it.
No way.
Unless I'm forgetting about the fact we did actually do it. Either way.
The thing is, I can't remember either.
This whole thing is doing my head in, and I feel like I need a glass of wine to sort of calm down.
But just let me get this straight.
Yeah.
We can't actually remember if we've done this episode. We probably haven't, but somehow this sort of question got lost. Now, to my mind, there is an easy fix.
You go on.
Our listeners are far more on the ball than we are. It wouldn't be hard, and they are. So they can remind us, please, lovely listeners, can you remind us if we've already done this episode? And then if we haven't, which we strongly suspect we haven't, we have a fun episode ready to go for next year.
I love where your head's at.
And we just admit that we have absolutely no capacity to remember anything any longer.
Your mind is clearly not as wine-addled as mine. I'm not sure it's entirely professional to rely on our listeners to tell us if we have or haven't done a show. But hey, here we are.
Oh, hey. Anyway, in the meantime, Kirsten, thanks for the question. If anyone else wants to let us know what their silly money wine would be before we finally get round to making this programme, then
maybe not
get in touch.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
We can still feature you if you do.
Now, anyway, on the subject of special bottles, we are getting on to our wines of the year, and we do have one final question to feature before that. So it is as follows.
Susie and Peter, my name's Chris, and I would like to ask you about opening wines to breathe before you drink them. So recently I read Jane McQuitty in the Times, and she said that she thought you shouldn't do it at all. It makes no difference, but every other person I've ever read or heard has said that you should. So how long should you open them for? Let's take, for example, a Chateau Latour 2006 versus a Chateau Latour 1990. Let's take a Barolo 2016 versus a Barolo 2000. Let's take a Nuit Saint-Georges Premier Cru 2016 versus 2000 again. How long, and how do you know how long you should open these wines in order to let them breathe?
It's a big question, Chris, but a very good one. And I guess one way of providing a pretty brief answer would be to say that we would tend to agree with Jane. We don't really open wines to breathe.
Yeah. No, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, even just agreeing with Jane is something that feels a bit strange. And inviting a tsunami of abuse from the sommelier community is probably not wise either. But no, just joking aside, it is true. We don't tend to open our wines in advance to breathe, do we?
No.
But I guess that's partly because, I don't know, we're quite interested, nerds that we are, in how things open up over time in the glass.
Yeah.
So that's part of what we want to sort of keep an eye on. And they do open up in the glass.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, letting certain wines breathe does improve them. Some wines are actually better the next day.
That's true.
But they're the exception, and it's often hard to predict. That's the point. Now, so what we'd say is, to allow wine to breathe, you need to decant it. Just leaving it in the bottle taking the cork out, that's going to have virtually no effect whatsoever.
Yeah.
But decanting in advance is something to do with younger wines, like like the Laturo 6 or the Barolo 2016 or the Nuit Saint-Georges 2016. And it's to help them kind of open up and kind of harmonise or just show better, taste better.
Yeah, and you can decant older wines, partly to get them off the sediment, I guess. But we find it's better just to pour them carefully rather than decanting, because that way you can track the wine's evolution in the glass and you don't risk them overly oxidising and effectively spoiling before you drink them, which would be a disaster. Now, that's often the case with sort of much older wines than, let's say, a Latour 2000. But, it's just worth bearing in mind. With really fine wines like this, we find it's just good to take time over them. And equally, when you do so, you may decide, Chris, that a certain amount of time with air is optimal for a specific wine for you. If so, fill your boots, decant it like that in the future. Bear that in mind, make a note and come back to it. Just be aware, that the wine is still evolving in bottles, so this sort of neat calculation may alter over time.
I like the make a note. Make a note.
In your notebook.
Just make a note. And then drink the stuff. But it's not straightforward, is it? But on an entirely professional note, Chris, given how good your cellar clearly is, we'd happily come and advise on this breathing business in person. Maybe a few controlled experiments with the Latours from various vintages.
But you can also provide a really dodgy agony aunt service at the same time, Chris, if you're interested. Time to move on. Thanks to everyone who sent in questions or messages. Keep them coming. We love them. Sorry if we've missed any. Do give us a nudge if we ever do forget, which we clearly do.
We do.
On occasion.
Anyway, what we haven't forgotten, though, is that it's time for our wines and wine
of
God. The year.
We've remembered the one reason for doing
the
show.
podcast.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Let's get on to it. We featured 2 WOTYs so far on the pod.
Mm-hmm.
Our first year we did Vas Felix Filius Chardonnay from Western Australia, a stunning wine that we have drunk gallons of.
Really
and last year we did Raul Perez La Vitoriana from Bierzo in Spain. So that was a delicious red that just blew our minds.
Yeah.
So this year we wanted to feature something different.
We did. And we also, as I said, wanted to put the focus on value wines because, this year has been a tough year for many people and the cost of living crisis and rampant inflation is very real. So, that means that budgets are squeezed more than ever. So we wanted to sort of slightly reflect that and give options on that front. It doesn't mean we won't be mentioning the odd treat.
Yeah, no,
but,
that's very true.
But,
yeah, and we should add at this point that what started as just one wine of the year, we couldn't keep it simple, could we? It's now morphed into a whole selection, hasn't it? So when we were trying to choose our wine of the year, it sort of threw up all kinds of great wines, and we were saying, but we should at least give these a shout out.
Yeah.
So we're going to flag up a few options before getting on to our actual WOTY.
Yeah, well, it's part of the drama. It's building up the tension.
It is.
The tension.
In third place, in second place.
And who's going home?
Runner up.
You're fired.
Yeah.
No. I shouldn't say that.
Go. Come on.
We should say this is, of course, primarily focused on wines available in the UK market. But for those of you listening elsewhere, there may well be the same or similar wines available and well worth seeking out. As I said at the top of the show, one of the main points of this is to give you ideas or inspiration for delicious wines to drink over the festive period, not just the exact bottles. Also, just to help remind you of the best bottles you've had this year.
Yeah, enough faffing.
Okay.
Wine time.
Sorry.
Where did we want to start? Well, I suppose fizz comes first, doesn't it? So let's start there. And if we're talking value fizz, then a good Crémant usually fits the bill. So a Crémant from France. And one we'd flag up is the Marks and Spencer Crémant de Bourgogne Brut Envy at £12, which I tasted very recently and was really impressed by it. And this was after you also did a blind tasting where it did very well as well.
Yeah. So this was a blind tasting for Which magazine to find the best value Christmas wines from UK supermarkets. And this was just one of my favourites, a sort of mini champagne style, but much easier going in a way. It definitely got creamy, appley flavours, but just amazing value, as Crémant de Bourgogne often can be.
Yeah.
You do forget that sort of not far off 1 in 10 bottles of Burgundy are actually fizz. And some of it is fantastic value. It's well worth bearing in mind.
Seeking out, yeah. And you also like the Tesco Finest Premier Cru Champagne in that tasting as well, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. So, briefly, I think it was my top mark in the end, actually. It was a lovely sort of classic champagne style, only £23. And I have just read, I think, that if you're a club card holder and do the 25% off 6 or more bottles until the 4th of December, you can actually pick that one up for a slightly absurd £15. But I'm looking at you slightly grimacing. Do we agree, Susie, Barry, MW, with deep champagne discounts at Christmas?
Not really, to be honest. I know it's very tempting to buy champagne when it's on a crazy offer, but it does kind of devalue the category, if I'm allowed to say that. And frankly, let's be more positive. We think it's far more rewarding to buy something local or from an independent retailer that is fairly priced and much more interesting to talk about and to drink.
Yes, as a wine lover.
Yeah, and on which note, here's another suggestion. We've been very impressed by so many English sparkling wines this year, partly from our visits and tastings far and wide, but also in when I was chairing the Wine GB Awards. And we simply do not have time to name them all at all. Just go and look for your local vineyard and buy something. But one producer we would like to highlight is Harrow and Hope in Buckinghamshire. They tend to fly under the radar, but they make consistently delicious and very fairly priced English wine. And we'd give their Brut Reserve No. 6 a big shout out. It's £32 from Jeroboam's or direct from the winery. It's also available in Scandinavia and Hong Kong. It got a trophy at the Wine GB Awards, and it's appley and biscuity and just hugely appealing. So Harrow and Hope, Brut Reserve No. 6.
Great shouts there. So it sounds like you're doing the wholesome recommendations and I'm on sort of cynical discounts and the like. So that means I should probably also take on the role of shameless self-promoter.
Go for it.
And give a plug here for our
very
own
that as well.
English sparkling wine, Hope and Glory. I feel like I should sing that, but I will save you.
This is easy to remember because we've got Harrow and Hope. Or Hope and Glory.
And there we go. Hope and Glory. It's the hope is the
hope is there.
Is the current theme.
We have hope. We have hope you will buy this because. But why do we want people to buy this?
Because all proceeds are going to the Marine Conservation Society charity, an amazing charity doing brilliant work. Now we've got 2 utterly delicious oak-aged Hampshire sparkling wines that we made in collaboration with the brilliant Hattingley Valley. We still have a few bottles left, and to make the offer irresistible, we've taken a huge 40%-ish off that my maths is never brilliant off the blend.
It is pretty much 40%
off the wine. So the blend 2017 is now £20 a bottle. That's insane.
This is traditional method English sparkling wine from Hampshire that is delicious.
Pinot Meunier dominant, but with Chardonnay okay. It's down from it's £20 down from £35. And you can also get the duo set with the Blanc de Blanc 2016, another sumptuous wine. So both wines for £50, and that's down from £75.
Yeah.
So please do help us raise some great cash for a great cause. The bottles look cool, they're delicious, so it's win-win. You can get them from hattingleyvalley.com, and we'll put a link up too.
Because you have got to tap in
their own little
Hope
presentation box.
They are a presentation box, but you've got to tap in Hope and Glory if you want to find them on the Hattingley site.
Okay. Plug.
Are you done?
Yes.
Good. Moving on to festive reds. Now, 2 great value, we're back to value recommendations. If you're after something sort of simple, refreshing, fruity, not sweet, then the El Aviador Tempranillo 2021 from Spain is just $5.99 at Majestic. And it looks pretty good too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty smart bottle. Another option is the Weinert Carrascal Corte Tinto 2018 from Argentina. It's only $10.95 at the Wine Society, but it's like aged claret on speed, isn't it? Tobacco, you've got tobacco roasted pepper, there's some firm tannin, but it's also fleshy and spicy. So much wine for the money.
It's a
$10.95. It's a stonking value.
Bargain.
That,
if you're a
isn't
Bordeaux
it?
fan and you want something a little bit more fun, it's amazing, and it's such good value.
Bit richer,
So if you want to push the boat out a little bit more, I'd flag up the Meerlust Merlot 2017, which is £20 at Majestic on their offer. I am full of the joys of South African wine, as you know.
We do. We do.
Just
Why is that?
Just got back from filming our latest Wild Side of Wine show out there.
Come on then, tell us about it. We all want to know what a great time you've been having.
You are desperate to hear about it again, but for the benefit of our listeners, I'm not going to give away too many spoilers, and I'm not going to go on too long.
Spoilers? Smoilers? Did you say spoilers?
Oh, I don't want to give us spoilers or spoilers.
What's a smoiler?
Neither. But anyway, so quick summary was I went wine tasting with giraffes.
Ooh, Need some long glasses for that, I presume.
We know very long glasses. I tried my hand at welding and no brakes go-karting. I got chased by huge seals. I dodged a few sharks at surfing. I got involved with barbecuing sheep's heads. And I even planted some kale and...
That's a bit of a funny juxtaposition, isn't it?
I planted kale.
Barbecuing sheep's heads and planting kale.
Well, it's like yin and yang. I feel I made up for the vegetarian community by doing... Anyway, let's not go there.
No, that's not.
But the big finale was I even
trouble.
got captured on film dancing.
Whoa, and you never dance when you're sober.
Who said I was sober?
Yeah. Either way, I'd love to see that footage. Did you actually do any wine tasting? I mean, you told me this was work.
Yeah, we did do a bit. We honest, we did.
I'm
do
not
a
sure
bit.
you did.
Anyway, moving on. The series should be coming out in 2023, so perhaps we can all judge for ourselves then. You know how much work was involved, but just
or
to
how
say,
good your dancing is.
Well, that's very true. I think we know the answer to that. That is a spoiler and a smoiler. Just to say, you know, by general comment, South Africa is so cool. It's such a great place to visit and enjoy. It's so vibrant and full of life. The food is amazing. The wines are so exciting. We all have to visit. We should visit and support. It's a brilliant place. But coming back to the wine, you know, one good thing South Africa wine can do is sort of be like a bridge between old and new worlds. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it's worth repeating. You know, you often in the wines get this boldness and energy of the new world, but with a kind of elegance and savoury appeal of the old world. It's such a lovely space to be operating. And this Merlot is just that. You know, Meerlust is a very historic family estate in Stellenbosch. It makes classical wines. And this Merlot is absolutely in that mould. Yes, it's £20, but it's still amazing value. It's sort of peppery and gorgeous and firm tannin. I'd say it's way better than many other Merlots. For example, from Bordeaux at 2, 3, even 10 times the price. It really stands the comparison.
Yeah, I mean, Meerlust just make great wines.
They really
it doesn't
do,
really
actually.
matter what you buy from Meerlust. It doesn't disappoint.
And there are so many South African wines at this sort of price point, which are really exciting. White and red.
Yeah, worth looking into. Now, on the subject of reds, we did just want to throw in the idea of some alternative formats by way of inspiration, didn't we? For example, why not go for a Magnum this Christmas, especially if you're having like a whole load of people over? And one great value option is a Magnum of Salice Salentino Riserva Vallone. I think that's how you say it, maybe? Yeah. 2018 from Italy. It's £19.80 from the Wine Society, and it's full of juicy, jammy red fruit. It's very typically sunny and a perfect party wine. Or if you want to push the boat out a bit more, a Magnum of Berry Brothers and Rudd own label Santa Barbara County Pinot Noir 2019, made by Au Bon Climat. It's £52 and it is just sensational. We've got it here, haven't we? And I'm just enjoying the perfect Christmas Magnum.
Oh my word, it's such a good wine. And I completely agree. Nothing gets the party going like a Magnum. No, that's a great shout.
And Christmas is a time when you've got enough people around.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go for Magnums, people. But, you know, in terms of alternative formats, don't forget things like cans and also bagging boxes, etc., etc. These things can be much better for the planet in terms of carbon emissions. And of course, you've got, you know, lots of wine in a bagging box. And if you're having lots of people over, these things can work really, really well. You know, if you're worried it doesn't look posh enough, well, just decant it from the bagging box into an empty bottle or a decanter, Chris. There we go. I'm not sure you get your Latour in a bagging box, but hey, you know, stick it in a decanter. It looks great. You know, so the one we'd recommend here is the Michael Opitz Buddy Talk Burgenland Red 2019, which is £42.80 for 2.25 litres from bibwine.co.uk. Well worth it.
Austrian Red,
try,
there you go.
Yeah.
Right, so one last wine to tip before our wine of the year, and it's the most gorgeous sweet wine. I was just in heaven when I tasted this. It's the Gonzalez Baez Apostoles Palo Cortado 30-year-old. Just heavenly. It's sweet, intense, nutty. You've got caramel flavours there. It's not cheap. It's £19.99 for half a bottle, but you don't need very much of it. So that's at Waitrose. You can also get it in the US and all over the place. But believe me, people, you need this wine in your life at Christmas.
Well, you sound like you need more than a little bit in your life.
Yeah,
you know, it sounds like this is a sherry to
a good old dollop of that
spend
for
time with. Okay,
it'll get you through Christmas and New Year and everything,
and
the rest of the year
and summer. Anyway, we should say that many of these recommendations are featured in an article we've done for Decanter magazine in their Christmas 2020. It's never ending, is it? It will be appearing
Are you
every
starting
Christmas.
to rap now, or?
Every Christmas for the next
DJing.
Christmas 2020. I can't even say it. Can you say it for me?
I think it's the 2022
Thank
edition.
You. Edition. Too much of that
Off
Santa Barbara
decanter.
Pinot Noir. It's out now, isn't it? And we'll put it up on our website in due course. The piece is themed around wines for different occasions, like parties, Christmas morning, big lunch, Boxing Day, New Year's Eve. So, do check that out for even more of our top tips. There really are some delicious wines in there, aren't there? We've tasted so many wines to make that selection.
We tasted a lot for that selection.
Brilliant thing to do.
It was, yeah. We were lucky to do that one. But now, the big moment is here. We've done fizz, we've done red, we've done sweet, we've done alternative formats. What do we need? We need a white. And that white is our wine of the year. It is...
Wait. Oh, I was going to get a drum ready for this.
You let me down. Go on, you do something. Amazing. Amazing.
Is that my forehead?
The wine of the year is the Main Divide Riesling 2019.
Yes.
It's made by the brilliant Pegasus Bay in North Canterbury, New Zealand, and it is a total bargain at $10.99 at Majestic.
Yeah, so we chose this one partly because it's delicious. It's really serious
Riesling, yeah.
Complex, rich, very versatile with food. Think Christmas curry, but frankly, you could put this down with pretty much
curry.
Anything, and it would work. It's important to say, maybe not for everyone. Its style is very pungent. It's got tons of rich green apple. I've got it here in another glass. Baked cream. It's sort of orange zest, and there's definitely loads of petrol, something you picked up on quite strongly, wasn't it? And the palate is really succulent, but also fresh and mineral. There's a tension there, but it's just kind of off dry finally. I mean, it's sensational value for money is what it really is. That's $10.99 for that wine is just...
And it's full of character. It's just different. I mean, we're huge fans of the entire Pegasus Bay range. They're a great producer. It's the Donaldson family based in Waipara on the South Island. They hang the grapes for a long time to increase complexity, and they hold wines back before releasing because they think the wines are better for it. And they're just really properly characterful wines. The Sem Sauve is beautiful and flinty, so that blend of Semillon Sauvignon Blanc. The Chardonnay is nutty and savoury and salty. The Pinot Noir, the red Pinot Noir, is just really funky and foresty and spicy. And they have then a whole range of Rieslings, which are all heavenly.
Yeah. And this is one, and at a great price. And you can actually get it in quite a few places around the world. So it's not just in the UK. So
and the Pegasus Bay range in general, is pretty
the Pegasus Bay range in general, and also
available.
This wine. So I'd say Riesling all round for Christmas is our prescription this year, is it not?
Don't forget Chardonnay. We do love a bit of Chardonnay as well, don't we? We don't have to have one grape for Christmas. Well, no, we can't do that.
That's true.
And, I mean, there are so many good ones out there in terms of Chardonnay. And check out our decanter piece again for loads of great options.
Of course. Good shout. Packed full of Chardonnays in there. On which note, we will raise a glass and we will leave you lovely people in peace. Thank you so much for your support this year. We really appreciate you taking the time to tune in, spend time with us, and to send us in your feedback and questions too, of course. Don't be afraid to give us a Christmas present in the form of a nice rating and review.
Or send him in a new Christmas jumper because he needs one. Should see what he's wearing. My Lord. Anyway, we do have another brilliant couple of episodes coming up in the next few weeks, so keep an eye out for those. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, cheers to you.